Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. A short while ago we checked out what could have been best described as a micro game in Marin's day. A short but sweet little game, opening my eyes to this genre. Because I enjoyed the game so much, I had to look into today's game, aCatAndHisBoy, in which I want to say thank you to Howdy Riceball, the developer, and Raw Labs, the publisher, as well as keymailer for allowing me to have a key for this game's review. On paper, you might think a game that can be beaten in less than an hour without it even being a speedrun is going to be shallow and a relatively meaningless experience. However, aCatAndHisBoy is quite the opposite. It's a very memorable and heartwarming experience. Being a more narrative-heavy experience overall, aCatAndHisBoy follows the story of a boy named Leaf and his cat named Midnight. Out the gate, we jump into the story, learning of the issues that Leaf is suffering from, and that is the fact that he feels so small in the universe. With his parents being divorced, everyone's worried about him. However, they're not listening to him, only attributing his worries to nothing more than that of the divorce, which in turn exacerbates the problem of feeling small. In a way, I found it to be refreshing, and that's because the game explores the boy's feelings more so than what the adults are implying. And although I think you could definitely have a great discussion around that implication, the fact is no one is listening to what the boy has to say. Asking the question, how can you help if you won't listen? Ultimately, the story that is shared with us is that of a boy learning to not be afraid and feeling so small in comparison to that of the universe, thanks to his adorable sidekick, Midnight. Now, for the sake of not spoiling anything else, I won't talk about any of the other major story points throughout the game, since I think it's a game you should play for yourself. So with that said, let's jump straight into the presentation. You'll notice that the game has a very Gameboy-esque design, in which you would be right, because like its counterpart that I mentioned earlier, Marin's Day, it technically is a Game Boy game. Visually, it relies on a lot more blacks and whites compared to that of Marin's Day, which used a lot more pastel-like colours, giving it a more retro feel than I initially expected while playing. The character sprites are best summed up as simple but cute. In what might be the best feature of the game, you also have a button to meow. Outside of the visuals, the game has an incredibly catchy and enjoyable soundtrack, which is worth the price of the game alone just to listen to. It does what I think a soundtrack should do, and it services the game to perfection. We have some softer tracks, and some more energetic ones when required. However, in what might be the smartest design choice in the game, when you're in your mother's room, there's actually silence, showing that she is also struggling with what's been going on. The game knows when to give and when to take away, showing that it's got some real thought behind every aspect of its design. The gameplay itself is pretty simple, akin to that of an adventure game, seeing you explore and find items in order to solve puzzles. There's nothing there puzzle-wise that will catch you off guard, and it means that the game's pace stays consistent with the storytelling, making it an extremely cohesive experience. Beyond what I mentioned already, there are a couple mini games for you to play, from a butterfly catching Game Boy-esque game that is pretty easy since it gives you the answer to the time capsule that Leaf has buried in the backyard, and also a short but sweet platforming section that sees Midnight trying to find 9 crows and retrieve their collar that was stolen from a big crow. It's pretty straightforward, but hey, it's nice that it's here. Neither of these are going to be the main reason why you would really replay the game, but it's more about the narrative itself, as I said, in which I took the time to reach out to the developer, Howdy Riceball, and ask what inspired aCatAndHisBoy in the first place, to which they responded. Initially, I wanted to make a game that was the reverse of a Tamagotchi where the creature takes care of the player, but the more I developed the idea, it turned away from the original concept. Though, even though they've said that, I can still see that original concept here. The core idea is still there, that Midnight is the one looking after Leaf, ultimately helping him overcome some of his issues. I also took the time to ask if there were any further content plans for aCatAndHisBoy, to which Howdy Riceball did let me know the game is intentionally short since it was their first commercial game. They were learning how to develop games while making it so there were no plans for future content, at least at this time. However, if you do like what Howdy Riceball has made, they are working on a game called Expiration Date where you play as a sentient carton of milk. Very strange sentence that I never thought I would say. But there is a demo on their itch.io page, which I will have linked in the description, so definitely go check it out. At the end of the day, aCatAndHisBoy might only seem to be a short game that you could smash through super quick, but it's honestly a game that will stick with you a lot longer than you would ever expect. If you want to check it out for yourself, it's available on Steam and Switch, and it's only a few bucks, so I highly recommend it. I've played my fair share of games that cost 10 times the amount, with honestly half the quality. And yes, the game might only take 30 minutes to beat on an initial playthrough, but that's the best 30 minutes I've had in a game in a long time. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this look at A Cat and His Boy. I know this video is pretty short, but the game itself is pretty short as well, so I thought, might be kind of fitting to have a review that doesn't waffle on too much. Overall, this is a game I highly recommend, and it is a game that will hopefully stay with you, at least emotionally. I know it's going to be a part of my life going forward, and it's a game that I will probably boot up every now and then. It reminds me of, as I said, Marin's Day, but also a game called Emily Was Alone. That game has just stuck with me ever since I played it initially. Every time I play it I get sad, but it's something that I come back to every now and then. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, you can hit the subscribe button, and if you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi, Patreon, or YouTube memberships like these lovely people here. Please also join the Discord, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.